sometimes I'm thinking, what could be the reason why we all are in this materialistic world of life and death cycle?
Like, how did we come here in the first place?
What could be the reason why we came here, why we are not with Krishna all the time?
Yeah.
Why we are not in Vaikuntha all the time? Why Krishna sent us here in this materialistic world of life and death and lot of sufferings?
You asked the most complex question at the end of the. Save the best for the last. Huh? This question has been debated and discussed for generations, and still everyone is not on the same page. So shall I say something?
What is your feeling on this?
My feeling means... Well, the Srila Prabhupada generally... I'll tell you how Srila Prabhupada generally responded to this, but then I'll tell you why this question is so difficult to answer. So Srila Prabhupada generally responded to the query like this. Each of us are spiritual beings, and Krishna exists with us in a relationship of love in Vaikuntha, in the spiritual world. Now, in order for love to exist, there has to be free will, isn't it? How can love exist if there's no free will? Because love means the voluntary giving of oneself to someone else. So therefore, Krishna gives every soul one thing that he never takes away, and that one thing is free will. So then, because Krishna gives us free will, originally we're all in the spiritual world with Krishna. But remember, we have free will. So now someone will say, yeah, we have free will, but why would we ever misuse our free will and come here? Is it that we were dissatisfied? Is it that we kind of had an argument with him or something? Like what? Why did we leave? Why did we misuse our free will? So Srila Prabhupada says, what happens to the soul in the spiritual world is it's not so much that they're dissatisfied, but at a certain time a curiosity may arise. You know, like a curiosity, like what would it be like, to be separate? Now you could always say, why would a curiosity arise if you're in the most perfect place? Like surely you must be full, no curious. But sometimes a curiosity may arise. And then what do they say in English? Curiosity killed the cat. So when you have a curiosity, then you immediately look, then Krishna has to facilitate another world where you can be separate. And then when you come into the world, then you become entangled, and then you get into this whole cycle. That's generally how Srila Prabhupada explained it. But let me now tell you why this question is somewhat inconceivable if you try to explain it in language. It's like this. Imagine this is the earthly planet here, the earthly realms. I don't know if you're familiar with Vedic cosmology, but there's 14 levels of planets. So we're right in the middle. Yeah, it's called Bhumandala. So imagine this is the time frame of the earthly level of planets. Now what happens when you go higher and higher in the material universe is that time dilates, isn't it? So when you get to Brahmaloka, which is the topmost planet in the material world, then one day on Brahmaloka is like 6 days on Earth because time dilates. Even Einstein talks about this relativity of time. Now what happens when you go beyond Brahmaloka, you come to the causal ocean, which is the boundary between the material and the spiritual world. At that point, time becomes zero. Time is dilating, and at the end of the material universe, time becomes zero, because in the spiritual world there's no time. Okay? So now, can you leave a place where there's no time? If you say yes, then I'll ask you, when did you leave? But you say, but there's no time. No, but I left. Okay, when did you leave? But there's no time. So you can't actually leave a timeless place. Can you re-enter a timeless place? If you say yes, then I'm going to ask you, when did you re-enter? So this question becomes very difficult to answer because basically we're spanning two different time dimensions. So we're trying to look at it like this. We were in the spiritual world. Then we had curiosity. Then we decided to come here. Then we came down. Then we met the Hare Krishnas. Then we went back. So we're trying to chart it as a historical narrative, like a timeline. You know, like they used to have a story. They used to have this program in England called This Is Your Life, you know? And it was like, it charted the whole life of someone from like, you were born here, da, da, da. So we're trying to look at it like that, but it doesn't make sense. Because now you're talking about a narrative in which you're spanning two different time dimensions. So you can't actually talk about it in English language. That's why it will always be a mysterious thing. Did you leave the spiritual world? Yes. Have you always been in the spiritual world? Yes. But that's a contradiction. Yes. That's the nature of spiritual reality. Therefore, language has its limitations. I mean, I often give this example, like say for example, I say to you, birds of a feather flock together. Agree? Yeah, that's an English saying. You have to agree, it's an English saying. But then I could also say opposites attract. Agree? But they contradict each other. But are they both true? Yeah. Or I could say to you, the pen is mightier than the sword. Agree? Yeah. But then I could say to you, actions speak louder than? Which one is true? Both. But they're saying opposite things. Yeah. Because English language has its limitation to be able to describe a concept, a multi-dimensional concept in a single narrative. So the question of how we came to this world is a very complex question, and it can be looked at from many, many different angles. But the final thing that our teachers say is that when you're in a burning house, you're not really going to walk around trying to investigate how the fire started. That you can do later on. For now, for God's sake, just get out. That's the priority. So we don't want to too much preoccupy ourselves with questions of that nature which are somewhat inconceivable, especially when we're dealing with it as a narrative like that. Thank you.
So now, based on this understanding, what I can say is, we all have came here to explore.
Yes.
As a part of curiosity.
Yes.
But already we are there.
In one sense, yeah. You
already we are there.
Because they say when you enter the spiritual world, it's not like, oh, you're back, finally. It's just like, it's just seamless. It's like you had never left. So it's not like, oh my God, where have you been for the last 3 billion celestial years? Like, we missed you, you know? It's not like that. It's just like, oh right, we're just carrying on again, you know? So how do we understand that? It's very difficult.
For example, now we are